Yeah, we're live, Conversations Plus, which means you get to watch us hang out and have a good time. You want to be here? Let me know. Maybe I'll let you in. Well,
I don't want to be here.
Mike still doesn't want to be here. He wants to put his kid to sleep, his beautiful daughter. Awesome. So that was a good show. Rushed you a little bit. Daniel's here. Daniel watched probably none of it, which is fine. No big deal.
Did you watch any of it, Daniel?
Did you watch any of it?
I just got back to the house.
Oh, okay, cool.
So that's a no.
Yeah.
That's a non-denial.
That's a big fat... I don't need to watch you guys. I know you guys. Yeah.
I know you guys.
I don't need to watch you know what you're going to do.
It's like you guys...
Talk fast.
Same old...
Make idiots of ourselves. That's pretty much par for the course.
Nah. That is how we roll. Even Bruce Gaba doesn't want to be. Bruce Gaba, you don't need to... Just need to wake up in like 5 hours. Come on. 6 hours, whatever it is. It's important. Represent. So, Mike, so you talked a little bit about this big project that you that you had going on. Is there any hints or no hints? Is there anything any more you could say without saying?
Well, what can I say without giving anything away?
Does the boat sink at the end, or
what's that?
Does the boat sink at the end of your project?
Boat does sink, and the boy drowns.
That's stupid. What?
Yeah. They could have both fit. No, you know, probably what I can say is that it's definitely the biggest project that I've ever done, and it's probably the most outside of what I normally do. So I'm like, you know, I'm like winging it the whole way. And I hope, you know, I say that, but I hope that when people ultimately see it, and when they get to experience the finished thing, that they don't realize that, you know. But we'll see what happens. It's gonna be, you know, it's gonna be a couple months in the making.
And so, how many? Is this just you, or are there a lot of people working on it?
There are people that I've been bringing in to assist with it. Partly because that's part of the intent, and partly because there are certain things that I can't do, or I mean I could do, but it wouldn't be nearly as good, or you know, it wouldn't be nearly as interesting. So yeah, but I'm thinking it's probably going to be at least 2 months or so before I can really have much to be able to put out there or talk about. And then even after that, there may be, you know, another couple of months of just tweaking stuff and finalizing stuff. And so my hope is that by mid to late summer, I've got it basically done, and I can put it out there for people. So we'll see what happens. You know, like I said, I mean, I'm winging it, so I'm not worrying too much about timing. I'm just trying to get it done.
Is it a local project?
It's not. No. It is something that is involving people nationally, and my hope is when it's done, it's something that will be available internationally.
Nice.
So we'll see, you know.
Now, you didn't get to draw 99 or 100, so sorry about that. But hopefully
that's okay, because honestly, I didn't want to draw anybody.
Yeah, you didn't feel it. You weren't feeling it. You gotta feel it. You gotta feel it. Sure. No Mickey Mouse hands. Yeah, like, it's a pain. It's a pain. So, you know, a lot of people, I've talked to a lot of different artists about comic books, and, you know, about different ideas and writing, and, you know, writing takes a while, and then drawing and producing takes a while, and then there are one sheets. I mean, do you draw people really well? I would imagine comic books would be pretty up your alley, no?
Oh yeah, I mean that's definitely how I got my start. It was, you know, I was probably 8 or 9 when I kind of started really getting into drawing, and yeah, the first stuff I started drawing was comic books. I mean, it was like, oh, I want to be able to draw Spider-Man. I want to be able to draw Superman. And yeah, I can remember getting those like how to draw superheroes books, from like the library and stuff when I was a kid, and you know, trying to, you know, emulate my favorite comic book artists, and so yeah, I mean, absolutely, that was like the first thing that I started drawing.
Yeah. Comic books are awesome. No, I just meant that, like, would you, like, drawing real, like, not necessarily a superhero comic, but maybe, well, it depends. You can do anything in comic book. You can be doing anything you want. Walking Dead. You were on the Walking Dead show. That was big. We didn't talk about that this time, but, you know, we were both big fans of Walking Dead, and,
yeah. Yeah, I think it's a great show, and I mean, you've started reading the graphic novels.
yeah, up to volume 4. I need to get the rest of them, but yeah. Oh, actually, I'm glad that I didn't read too much past that, because I would like to. I probably want to read it. It's not coming back for another year, right? Probably. So.
Yeah, it'll be back in like
October.
So, yeah. Well, I mean, definitely. I mean, if you keep reading, it's going to give a lot of stuff away, and
right.
You know, some people like that and some people don't. I mean, me, you know, I've read everything up through current, so pretty much everything that happens, I kind of have a sense that it's going to happen. Maybe not the specifics of how, you know, because they've taken some licenses, but by and large, yeah, I think it's a great show. It's a great series. It's definitely different than any other show that really has been done that I'm aware of, you know. I mean, honestly,
for sure.
It's a primetime show where part of the focus is the fact that there are zombies.
Right. Well, and AMC takes risks like that. I mean, all the shows are pretty. I don't think they've ever done a show that you would see on a regular prime time. I mean, you got Breaking Bad is all about a chemistry teacher dying of cancer and making meth. I mean, you're not going to see that on NBC.
Right.
You know, it's all like HBO-ish the way they do that. So it's pretty cool to see some of those shows.
I would almost say that AMC is a poor man's HBO, but I think that's unfair to them because honestly,
their stuff might be even better than HBO. So,
it's great. So, but I mean, yeah, when you talk about that type of content, stuff that's more edgy or pushes boundaries, you kind of tend to think of HBO, you know?
Yeah, HBO and Showtime's trying to do that too. They're hit or miss, but try to get in their stuff. Daniel, I don't know if you're much. Did you watch? You said you watched Walking Dead or no? You don't. No. You don't
really?
TV.
I've never seen an episode. I can't say I like it or dislike it because I've never seen one.
Wow.
I know everybody talks about it, man, but the only thing I watch on TV is SportsCenter. And that's right before I go to bed.
Do you like to read at all?
Yeah. I like
Do you like to read?
Yeah, I love it.
Well, I'm just saying because if you do, you should totally check out the graphic novels.
Yeah.
Read the first, you know, dozen or so, and you know if you enjoy those, you'll enjoy the show. Hey, Elaine.
Hey, it's my
Hi.
girlfriend.
Hey.
Hi. Oh, my 3 boys. How are you? My 3 sons. How are you, gentlemen? Look at the 3 of you. You just perked right up. That was swell. Makes me feel really wanted. Hi, guys.
Yeah, you should see the lower half.
We want you.
Uh-oh, shoot.
We need you to sing.
Hands
hey,
up.
How awesome is it that it's you guys are both wearing black and me and Mike are both wearing blue?
Good. It's good.
Yeah.
We planned it that way.
Yeah, well, you know, television blue, right?
Television blue, NYPD blue.
Yeah, well, that too.
That
too. How are you guys? Listen, that was a nice little show.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
It was short.
You know what? I'm thinking that short works better.
Yeah.
The show that I do with Armin on Mondays about Mad Men, half an hour works really well. And it's amazing how quickly you can speak when you know you've got half an hour.
Yeah.
I think it depends on the guest, depends on the topic, depends on who it is and what it is. I mean, if we get into these debates that people are interested in, then those debates are okay to go longer. But it just depends on, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, if I do get the 4 community managers, they're going to want it to go on forever.
Are you going to have them on?
I'm trying. Get it? They all want to be. They all have to be the same. They all want to be in the same place. It's like, why do you all have to sit in the same couch? Can't you all be your own wherever? But
you know, I actually have a beef based on something that you guys were talking about in the Hangout.
Sure.
Which is, you know, the idea that somehow we are not allowed or we're not given permission in any kind of way. We don't have an icon or a button or any kind of a preface to the work that we want to post that may be adult based, right?
Yeah.
So they're not giving us this ability to do that, and yet at the same time, those of us who hang out, if we hang out publicly, are expected to monitor that situation and take whatever comes our way, which is actually even more difficult because we're not a passive audience when we're in a hangout, and if some guy comes in and hangs his dick out, we're supposed to just sit there and watch it. But if somebody puts a dick in the stream and you can mute it or go past it quickly, that's okay? Like, I don't get it. I don't get it.
Well, there are people that religiously will go find it and report all that stuff.
And the only way, by the way, because I spoke to Brian and to Natalie about this, the only way that your image was removed is that somebody had to have reported it. They don't randomly. There is no algorithm. There's no machine that's doing it. It's absolutely somebody pulling it by hand, so to speak. And let me ask you, if they can look at that stuff without dying and, you know, falling over backwards and all the rest of that stuff, then why can't we as an adult community? Well, and if they're offering us, keep going, but if they're offering us, I need to get this out. If they're offering, us the ability in Hangouts on Air and in Hangouts to limit it by age, then you know they have the ability to give us these things. That would make my experience better. I have to admit I'm feeling a little unhappy about Google Plus at the moment, which is not usual for me. I'm actually. And
do you think that has something to do with the new design, just a minor thing? Or?
It's the new design kind of led that way, but it's also this issue of, you know, being told that we are not going to be given any kind of controls in Hangouts and that we just have to deal with it. And
well, we have. You can get rid of minors if you start Hangout.
No, but not the minors. I'm talking about, you know, material that's adult content.
I mean, you can just block people, and that's the answer.
But if you're one person in a Hangout, you can't block somebody. You can't kick them out. You have to have like a quorum of people kicking them out.
Although that was at least a good thing. If you block somebody, says so and so blocked somebody, you want to do it too.
Yeah, so you know what? What if you're in the room? Never mind.
No,
I
can't.
It's all relative and possible, so we don't.
Yeah, no. What you're saying.
If we all have our penises out, then the only person that doesn't needs to be kicked out.
That's right. Okay. See you guys. Bye. No, show me. Okay, let's. No, really. If I know a guy and he wants to show me his dick, that's fine. I mean.
Right.
Seen them, been there, done that. It's no big deal. But, you know, when you're kind of sitting there and...
What? Our YouTube numbers just went up? What?
Somebody just presents themselves to you in that manner. What's the difference between somebody presenting themselves to you in a sexual way as opposed to getting a sexualized image in a stream? You know, one, I have more controls. They give me more controls in the stream than they give me in an actual living circumstance where I'm supposed to be some kind of ambassador for this community and this platform that I love so much. I don't know. I don't want that job. I'm not getting paid to do that job.
Nobody is.
Not appropriate.
Well, no users are anyway.
I was approached a week and a half ago about, you know, getting my own on-air stuff, and I told them I didn't really want to because there's enough photographers doing it. And they said, well, how about you come from a different slant? And, you know, you do like editing or, you know, they were naming off stuff, and they wouldn't take no for an answer. And afterwards, I just got this feeling, you know, after thinking about it, because I told them no every time. I just got this feeling like they want to push you into doing all this promotion for them, but at the same time, they're not willing to give anything back.
Right. So you're saying they came up to you and said, "We want you to do HOA," and you were like, "No, I'm not interested." Right.
That's exactly what happened in a Hangout.
Mm-hmm.
And I told them,
were they surprised that you kept saying no? Is that what it was?
I would think so. They didn't act surprised, but they just kept on trying to find a way for me to say yes.
There is that culture that there's part of Google, and we like Google, but there are people that work at Google have told me and other people, and from what we've seen is that they're cheap. And so to hear that and to see like so many people I know, there's technology and it's great and they're doing great things and privileges, but after a while it's like, you know, well, it works both ways, you know, we're giving. I mean,
See, here's
exactly.
I think there's definitely nothing wrong with them asking somebody, But I do think, if they were, hypothetically, if they were to come to me and say, Mike, we'd like to give you this new feature, and we're hoping that in, response you'd be willing to do this, or this, I wouldn't necessarily have any problem considering it, particularly if it was something I was maybe interested in doing anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd probably be like, okay, well, I'll do it, but, there's, if I'm going to do it, then I want to be able to say what I think my opinion is on either the subject or on other things, and I'd like to know that there's actually somebody that's going to listen.
Yeah. Well, there's a little bit of that, but even that, I mean, even if you shape what goes on, you give the ideas, and then they go ahead and they do your ideas, there's a little satisfaction, but it's still like, you put in time and effort, and I think that right now with the HOA, there's, you got the AdSense going and all that, but, what is that a reward? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But, everyone feels differently.
I do think, it is great for Google if they can get somebody who's willing to do something and they don't have to pay the person,
right,
and that person generates good content, and Google can point to it and say, see, this is a good example of what you can do and what we're doing. And I think that's great. I definitely want to see this space continue to grow.
Right.
But on some level, yeah, you're right. It's got to be give and take on some level.
Right.
Well, even if there's a level of respect that's given. I think all of us have been here since the beginning, since beta and field testing. And, I came in, as you were saying, with zero. I didn't know anybody here. There was nobody on my list that I knew, and I've built it up from zero to where I am now. And I've done that by being consistent in my sort of activity levels on Google+, because I really am passionate about not the social media aspect as much as I am about the exchange of information and the research aspect, because that's what I love doing. So, the fact that I've been able to research artists, and I've been able to research thinkers, and I've been able to research things that interest me, and I've been able to put them out there and to get feedback and to sort of gather information from other people who are interested, or at least express some kind of discourse towards what it is I'm doing. I'm gaining. I'm giving and I'm gaining. So I think it's a fair playing field for me that way. But when I'm asked as someone who hangs out to be responsible on my own terms but report to them, that's when it begins to cross for me. And from the very beginning, I've been asking for some kind of identification procedure so that people who are promoting their artwork, and it's always been about the work of art for me, that we somehow are able to indicate that it's an adult audience, and to whether we're responsible or whether the person on the receiving end is the one who's responsible. It's an easy enough thing to do. I don't know what the resistance is about. And I almost feel that sometimes we're like a social experiment that's being watched, to see if we turn into, well, no, not zombies. I'm actually not into zombies at all. I kind of put zombies on the shelf with HDR. But I am very interested in seeing if we're going to turn into what was that experiment with the boys on the island?
Oh, Lord of the Flies?
Yeah, Lord of the Flies, as if we're in a Lord of the Flies environment here.
Right. Well, not at that bad, because we can't actually eat each other inside.
Yeah, but we sure can bully each other,
That's life.
Yeah.
But I was talking about that whole idea. Hey, Christa. I was saying the whole idea of perception, about like how we all don't know each other. We come on here, we all meet each other here, there, hangout streams, and we all get ideas of each other. We get ideas from other people, and we think we like someone, and then people we like more or less, or respect more or less, and that keeps changing daily based on an incident or not, depends on who you are. And then you meet them in real life, and then other things happen, and then you're in different situations. And so there is a lot of human behavior and things that go on, and there have been plenty of times you spend enough time with anybody and you can start predicting, oh, that person's going to be this, or that person's going to exit the hangout, or that person's, you start predicting. So I've done that. There are times where I'm like, I know that I'm posting something innocent, but I know that this person is so
wound up about it.
Wound up that if I even say, oh yeah, that's right, they will delete my comment. And that, I've done that. I copied and pasted it and saved it just to check things like that. I do experiments like that to see if I'm right, and it's pretty crazy. You know, and I don't understand. I mean, people are addicted to drama. There's that, and so people. Christian Slater was, of all people, I was watching Inside the Actor Studio on YouTube the other day, and he was talking about how you can be addicted to drama like it's drugs or drinking, and I think a lot of people
there are
are.
Definitely people addicted to drama on any social network. You know, the difference is here, I think, is that there are people who will be analyzing that drama.
Right.
You know, like they're going to be actually looking and researching and thinking about the drama that they're seeing in front of them. And by the way, when I said that about zombies and HDR, it's not that I dislike them, you know, on a personal kind of level. I actually like some of the stuff that's being done. It's just not my personal interest. Like, I've never watched that show you were talking about.
That's okay.
That zombie show, whatever it was.
I must have missed part of the conversation if somebody's having drama surrounding zombies and HDR.
Well, so it's drama on HDR. But
Yeah.
the haters and the lovers and the whatever, the
Hmm.
But, I mean, Christa, you've been involved in your own share of drama here on Google Plus in different aspects. I mean, is it, I mean, you had well, I mean, I don't have to bring it up, or do you care if I bring it up?
No, that's fine.
Okay, so Christa had an incident where there was Goober Day, which was created to oppose Catterday.
Oh, I remember that.
And then people started to bring in the breast cancer part of it, and then Christa made a post, Robert Scoble made a post about it, and then Christa responded to that post because he got involved, and he also posted a picture of a woman with cleavage, in a sense, or whatever. And all
hell broke loose.
And all hell, Hangouts exploded.
Yeah.
Every conversation was about that, and Goober Day, and your post, and Scoble, and breast cancer, and whether it's good, whether it's bad, and now here we are months later, and Goober Day is put a little tiny memory that barely even exists anymore unless we bring it up, because Saturday, I don't even see it. Like Catterday, only a little bit more exists. I mean, I think it's still there, but definitely has slowed down. Do you guys agree from months ago?
And frankly, I think, though, that, I mean, maybe I'm just being, I don't know, looking at it from my own perspective too much, but I'd like to think that the impact of people who spoke out and said that they didn't like the way that the network was starting to go had an effect on how prevalent those were. Because I know a lot of people, I don't want to name names, but there are some people that told me, you know, oh, I didn't realize people were offended by that, I'll stop doing it, you know?
But I don't think that was necessarily, I think that the conversation that happened was organic and that it made sense at the time, but I honestly don't think that it was going to make a difference one way or the other. The conversations were had, I think that it was eventually going to lose its own impetus, you know?
I think it's two things. I think partly it's novelty wears off.
Yes.
And
they are just boobs.
It was, well...
It's the realm of the first adopter. It's the realm of the first adopter.
Some of us breastfed, what?
Yeah.
But, you know, I think that's part of it. And then I do think, to some degree, some people may be more conscious of what they post. And you know, and I know, I mean, personally, I've always tried to be really authentic on here and not censor myself too much. But the reality is, to some degree, I'm aware of the fact that people see what I put on here, and not just the people that are on here. You know, I share a lot of public stuff, and people may find that in a Google search, and the people that find it might be potential clients or employers or any number of different things. And as much as I want to be authentic, at the same time, to some degree, I want to maintain a certain image, and so I think about that before I post stuff, and I'm like, you know, even though I don't personally have a problem with saying this, you know, other people might, and so maybe I won't post it. And it's a very you know, case by case thing, you know.
Yeah, I don't know. Has anybody else felt that they've censored themselves in that kind of way?
I've went back and erased stuff.
Yeah?
Is that because the Search Plus your world? Is that kind of why you went back and do it, or?
No, after thinking about it, and I was like, that might not be the best representation of me and my photography, my family, you know, my business and so forth. So even if it had good reviews or good comments, I still went back and erased it. There's been about 6 or 10 that I've done like that. Sorry about that, Christa.
Oh, no, sorry, I was interrupting. Go ahead.
I'm done.
Christa. It's all you.
Oh, I was going to say, I guess I got lucky that when I was...
Your shirt says what?
Yeah. I guess I got lucky when I was growing up that I got to see a lot of that. I was involved in the, you know, the blogosphere a lot when I was younger using a pseudonym. And, you know, I got to see how, so one time, I think when I was 14 or 15, I had a website where I posted, you know, like all my journal entries and stuff. And I had some mothers from the fencing club that I was at found out my pseudonym from their kids or something, and I got like huge attacks from these mothers about what I was writing in my journal, and I realized, you know, you have to be careful about what you put online, even if you're writing under a pseudonym. You know, and now when you're using your real name, it's even more important. I forgot who said it, but you know, your name is all you have in the world.
That's right. All you have is your name and your reputation.
Right.
And if you destroy that, see, I'm sort of on the other end of the spectrum because I'm an artist. I've left behind academia, which was my sort of, you know, it's what reined me in for so long. I didn't want to interact with my students, and if I did happen to interact with them, I needed to be sure that I was above any kind of reproach. So I don't feel that anymore. I don't have those constraints anymore, and it's been incredible because I just put up whatever I'm interested in. I'm writing about it. It's going to be a book. It's going to be published. So there it is. And if you don't like it on Google Plus, you're not going to like it in my book either. So fuck you all.
Right. But that's it. That's just it. Is that the people that have they're teachers or they work for a Fortune 500 company or whatever it may be, where they can't post things like that because it'll come up with a Google search, and that will.
It's it's a very insidious form of censorship because I am who I am. If you know me in real life, this is exactly the way I am in real life. So why do I have to somehow mediate myself when I'm
and it is unfair. I think it's unfair. I guess you do represent a company to a point, but it's unfair for you not to be able to post something that you like because someone might be like, oh God, this guy always puts up the F word or always does something that's kind of racy. Like he shouldn't work here anymore, or she shouldn't work here anymore.
Yeah, and you know that whole thing that happened with Facebook with giving passwords. You know, people in companies demanding that people give them their passwords. And at what point do you say, you know, this is my life, this is what I do. Who are you to stop me from doing this? I mean, even, you know, Mike, when you were being interviewed by Matthew earlier and you didn't want to show the nude.
Yeah, and I had no problem showing the nude too.
And I'll say, you know, the main reason for that wasn't because I had any concerns about it, but I didn't want to offend Laura.
I'm sure
have
she
the images been shown on Google Plus though?
Yeah.
It has.
Well, and isn't that one of the rules of the Hangouts on Air too, right?
No, you're allowed to actually artistically.
Oh, you are?
No,
yeah,
as long as it's not product placement or, you know,
as long as it's not
speech, the whole sort of.
But you have to mark it for 18 and above, though, right? Like you can.
Well, all Hangouts on Air are 18 and above.
Oh, they are?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Well, people can watch them on YouTube later, but that's their issue.
Well, then there's an age restriction.
One of my thoughts is that, I mean, the post of the picture is on Google Plus. I mean, it's in my albums. It's blocked, but it's there. But it's one thing, you know, for somebody to see something that's months ago in my stream. They might come across it. But, you know, when it's in a brand new YouTube video that's going to be, I mean, now we're talking it's in a whole new location. And with that in mind, you know, I didn't really have any problem putting up the nude one, but I probably wouldn't have wanted to do it without Laura being okay with it.
Because you're a good guy. That's all. You just want to be.
That's really all it comes down to. Is, you know, I wouldn't have any problem with it, but it's her body, it's her picture. I mean, she bought it, so I wouldn't feel entirely right about doing it without asking her.
And you know what? You know, it would have been an interesting experiment if you did, because it would have been like in the middle of the show, so not people would have to either fast forward or watch it to get to it, and it would have been for only a handful of minutes. So I wonder.
Well, yeah, and the other thing is that I don't know. At what point do we become so ashamed? Because somebody might take offense, like the whole somebody might take offense thing. I don't know.
Well, there's a lot.
That's why I always have, when I was shooting professionally, I always had a model release signed. And I actually, I know that there's somebody who wants me to stop showing something that they did a full model release for 5 years ago. It's too late for them. That ship has sailed.
Right.
That work is out there. It's not going to be retracted because somebody has had, and these were people who were old enough to know what they were doing. They're well into their 30s, and it's like if you didn't know at that time in your life that this might have an effect on you when you volunteered to do something, and there was a whole process of having to sign a model release.
Yeah.
Not my problem. So
that stuff happens all the time with art, with movies, with everything.
Yeah.
I mean, people they get into it, and then because they don't like the end, sometimes they don't like the end result. Sometimes they're in it, and then they see the end result. They're like, oh, I don't like it. I don't want to be in it. That happens all the time.
Well, that's
it's more about people being moralized into something. Instead of demoralized, they're like moralized into changing their position.
I think it's really important. Well, first of all, I want to say it's awesome, Mike, that you're being so nice to Laura about that, and I think that's the right thing to do. But I think when it comes to models, I think it's a shame that they don't negotiate their releases more often. Because, when I was modeling, I never looked at my releases. I just signed them, and I didn't care what they said. I just wanted to go, And now I probably would want to negotiate something that said, before somebody publishes something, I get to approve the final product to see whether I like it, something like that. Because, frankly, you never know how they're going to turn out.
No, you don't. Did you work as a professional model?
I did. I mean, I don't know what you would call professional. Like, I got paid for some of it, but not very much.
But if you were doing things for, a professional photographer for a purpose.
Yeah, I had a photography lighting book and one for the Checker Auto and one for Prieto's Auto Sales.
Yeah,
Hi.
I think it's important to know that you do have that ability to negotiate your contracts, and that people should read them. But unfortunately, if you're young and you don't know any better, sometimes you don't realize what you're getting yourself into.
Yeah, I was 18 at the time, so
yeah,
I really didn't know.
It's interesting that you bring that up too, because I mean, it is definitely, I think for most people, that's one of those things you really only figure out through experience.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's a contract that you are working out because you're going to be modeling something, or if you're on the artist side of it, you're going to be drawing somebody or something, working out a contract in advance. Years ago, there was a piece that I did for somebody, and I won't get into all the details, but basically, it was just a lousy experience. There were problems with payment and problems with communication, and at the end of it, I was like, well, I'm not going to do any work for them again. And then, 6 months or a year later, they contacted me again. I was like, well, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt and do it again. And the same thing happened.
Yeah.
So after that experience, I was like, not anymore. I mean, if I'm going to be doing something for somebody, especially if it's going to be a commercial project, if it's something that I know that the intent is to use it for some sort of commercial purpose, you better believe I'm working out a contract in advance, and we're going to sign that thing, and
Well, when I would teach my students about the responsibilities that they had for their work or for themselves, for that matter, if they were working with a model, is that you always treated, it's sort of an old school analogy, but you always treated your work as if it was your virgin daughter going out on a date with somebody. And you would question the person who picked her up, the person who was taking her someplace, what they were going to do, that she needed to be returned in the same condition in which she left the house, and that she needed to be returned at this time. So, I mean, it's kind of, like I said, it's an old school analogy, but it's sort of appropriate to the considerations that you give to something that's as fragile and as important to you as, you know, as something that we hold, like the way that we hold ourselves, because it is our reputation that's going out there.
Well, and especially, I mean, if you're talking in the context of any kind of creative endeavor, it very much is something that you're quite possibly putting a very significant amount of time into it, and by the time you're done, in a lot of ways, it's very much like your baby, you know?
Yeah.
You put, you know, sweat and, you know, time and a ton of effort into it, and you kind of, on some level, when it's done, you want to know that it's going to be used in ways that you agreed with, you know.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, the other thing is, let's talk about the fact that you drew my portrait in the Hangout the other
And
day.
he didn't necessarily ask for your permission.
He didn't ask my permission. I didn't even know he was doing it until...
Yeah,
you know,
that's the way he works.
That's a complete, but that was, I mean, I don't mind. And this is the reason. I have put myself in a situation where I am a public persona in a public, well, it wasn't a public, but a limited Hangout where I have no reasonable expectation of privacy. Absolutely none. And we say to each other in Hangouts, you know, what goes on in Hangout stays in the Hangout. But the fact is, somebody can be taping you, somebody can be drawing you, somebody can be, you know, taking a screen capture and using it for whatever purpose they choose after the fact. So, I don't know, it all comes back to managing your own affairs, you know. And if Mike decided that he was going to take that drawing and use it in a campaign for something 10 years down the road, I actually have no right to go to him and say, you can't use that.
You know, I think, and, you know, I don't know, I mean, Christa may be able to offer some insight into this, but, you know, if I drew somebody on a whim, you know, in a Hangout or something, and they didn't initially, you know, provide any kind of complaint or anything like that, if years down the road or something I wanted to use that as part of a project, especially if it was a project that I was going to be making money on, would they have any right to say, you can't use my likeness?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to comment on specific cases because that's an ethical problem, but I will say that there are laws about use of a misappropriation of a name or likeness, and it is a tort. You can sue someone for it. And there's also privacy invasions with certain, especially in certain states. So, yeah, it just depends on where you are.
Yeah, and what I can tell you as a professional who's dealt with this kind of issue, and I've had to teach about this kind of issue, is that if there is a financial consideration, that's when things get complicated.
Right.
So.
You know, but trust is a big deal. Trust is a big deal. It's a big thing. Yeah. So when you do it, and when you get a job, you're not necessarily, most of the time, someone you're not going to know who's hiring you. You're not going to necessarily, I mean, unless you're like Paul, I know has a lot of models that he's been working with for a while, so he has relationships with them. But a lot of people don't necessarily have that, and so you don't necessarily know what they're going to do with that. And yeah, you're going to get paid, but is what you're getting paid? You don't necessarily know exactly how they're going to use your image and your likeness, and they could and they could say, well, I plan on doing this, and they could do something completely different, and maybe you didn't necessarily sign up for that, but you gave them permission to do it. So I mean, it's a tough thing for sure. And I think that here on Google Plus, you know, with the Hangouts, with recording and video and pictures, I mean, I've seen it time and time again where people get upset. So people are taking screenshots, and they'll take a screenshot, and sometimes the funniest thing is there'll be people that get upset. They're the ones, they'll take a lot of screenshots, they'll post screenshots, they'll make memes, and then one person makes a meme of them they don't like, and then they go ape.
Yeah.
Like, and so it's like, it's interesting that, like, I mean, if you're someone that does it, you can't not expect people not to do it to you. That's just the way life is. Or
I think that there's this balance. A lot of people say, and this is one of my big issues with a lot of the internet culture, is that people say, oh, it all happens, so we might as well just deal with it and say, oh, well, you know, anyone can take a screenshot, so why don't we just say that it's perfectly acceptable culturally and legally for everybody to do that? And you know, I don't think that's the case, especially when you're talking etiquette. I think it's always the right thing to ask somebody, you know, before you do something like that. It doesn't matter who you are or what kind of internet etiquette you're following. The right thing to do is to always ask people's permission, because there are some people that just have higher standards of privacy than others.
Krista, let me ask you this. How many people do you think have read an etiquette book in the past 2 generations? Not that many. Sad to say, and I think you're absolutely right. Etiquette serves, in so many cases, it would serve people very well to know exactly what to do and how to present themselves and how to comport themselves in any given situation.
And it starts with us to do things like that, to tell people.
Does.
I mean, if they're not going to read those, then we need to be the ones to tell them, hey, you know, this is not okay. You know, think about it. Think about even the golden rule. Everyone knows the golden rule. Say, would you want that to happen to you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So here's a question. Kind of getting in using the concept that we were discussing of using somebody's likeness. Do you feel like it would be covering your butt if you literally so we'll use me as an example. If I decided I wanted to take a handful or even all of the images that I've drawn of people without their consent, and I wanted to put them into some kind of collage or something, which I was then going to print and sell. Would it be covering my butt if I made a post or something, notified every single one of those people, and said, unless you tell me otherwise, I'm going to take this as your consent to allow me to use your image in this way?
No, you have to say, if I don't hear from you, I have to wait to hear from you. Please let me know. You don't use it as an automatic, right? I mean, that's the correct thing to do. Legally, you know, once there's money involved, you're in trouble.
I agree that the ethical thing to do is to ask for the permission, but legally, could you say something like that? Like, unless you tell me otherwise, I'm going to assume that I have your permission.
But if somebody...
I can't answer that question ethically.
Right. But let's talk ethically for a second.
Okay.
If you're drawing somebody... No, but if you choose someone, Mike, and they're resharing it and spreading you out there, I mean, yeah, I mean, there are laws, but, and you can talk about ethics, but you drew that person, you spent time, you spent effort on it, and at the end of the day, it's their likeness to point, but it's not exactly them. It's a drawing. So, you know, there's a sense of, like, there being a little bit of artistic license where you're not, it's not like a photograph, you know?
Well, there's the slippery slope right there, because there is actually a lawsuit that involved a photographer named Philip Lorca di Corsia, a photographer in New York City who took photographs that were not staged. They were action as it occurred in a public street, a public walkway, and he has made a name and a career and a lot of money on those photographs that he took of people who were random passersby with no expectation of privacy, which is a very important part of the memo, and you know, so he is able to continue to make that work. There was a lawsuit, he won. This Jewish rabbi, I think he was a Jewish rabbi, he could have simply been a very Orthodox Jew who was walking home at sunset, and he was photographed, and he took it to court and said, you know something, this is my religious holiday, I was walking home, you had no right to photograph me, and he lost the lawsuit. So there is a precedent set for photography which says that if you are in a public place with no reasonable expectation of privacy, or in a gathering of 3 or more people, and that changes, I'm sure, state to state. This is the sort of Canadian thing. Then you have nothing to fall back on. So a hangout has more than 5 people. I'd say it's a public place. You know, I don't know. It's a slippery slope. I don't know enough about.
Yeah, I'd be careful about extrapolating the Canadian law to the U.S. law on that.
Yeah, I know, because every state is different, right? Every state is different.
I'm pretty sure there are precedents in the U.S. that essentially say the same thing, that if you are in a public space with no reasonable expectation of privacy, that it's perfectly within the law for somebody.
Yeah, look at paparazzi. That's the example to use.
You lose something as a celebrity, though.
Yeah, that's right.
But well, then what do you count? I mean, definition of celebrity is it can be slippery too, right?
I mean, courts deal with issues that are close questions like that all the time. But yes, you're right. There is a difference between celebrity and you still have rights of privacy and misappropriation to deal with, not just various different types of rights of privacy. So there's a lot to deal with, and it's different in every situation. I mean, the right thing to do is to get a release. Right,
and there are, in the history of photography, there are many instances where people were photographed without having signed a model release, and hundreds of thousands of dollars are made on those images.
There were some interesting cases.
Yeah, with the Farm Security Administration, photographs by Dorothea Lange of the migrant mother who never received a dime for those photographs that were taken of her. I mean, it just goes back. There's more and more and more. But the case that I was talking about did take place in New York. And the other thing is Canada is not a unified legal country either, because in Quebec it's actually Napoleonic law. So you can't photograph somebody in a public place. It's against the law in Quebec. Yeah.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
What were you going to say, Christa?
Oh, what was it? Oh, there was a case recently where there was this Russian model who had, I think, been paid, not very much for some photographs, and I think signed a release. I don't recall the case right now. I think it's pending, but she ended up suing because somebody sold her images to Urban Outfitters or something like that, and were making a ton of money off of it.
Yeah.
They were printing it on T-shirts.
Right. I mean, that's I think when it comes to, if you see a T-shirt or a bus or an ad or something with your face on it,
I know, right?
I mean, I think that, I guess, but where do you draw the line? I mean, but yeah, I mean, if you see,
there are legal lines to be drawn, and there, it's easy to find out. I wish I could say more. It's just that I can't comment on it.
Right. But so, does using somebody's likeness like that, a major company using somebody's likeness like that, even, for being in a public place, just like where, I mean, so technically you call Google Plus Hangout a public place, but is it a public place if it's Google's? I mean, so what, is it a place at all? And so when you talk about, Google using our feedback or ideas or whatever, or just monitoring our activity and see what we create and what we do and copying all that, is that similar to taking someone's likeness and making money off of it?
I signed the terms of service.
Yeah.
Okay.
I always wondered about how wiretapping laws applied to things like video chat, because actually I had an incident, and the reason that I blocked the Boober Day people was because they recorded me without my permission in a Hangout that I thought was private when we were trying to discuss issues. And I looked into, does this violate wiretapping laws? And it turns out, well, some states yes, some states no. It's a tough line whether something like this does violate wiretapping laws to record without someone's permission.
Especially when the two people are in different states.
Then exactly.
Which state does it go?
That's the hardest part.
Applies, do either of them fly? Do they cancel each other out?
And what happens when it's art instead of, real people?
Yeah.
That's another very interesting question. Like, Mike, the fact that you are drawing as opposed to photographing, and you're drawing not from a photograph, you're drawing from real life, which I have to say, the drawing he did of me was fantastic, and because it's not a likeness, right?
Can you post a link to it on the side chat? I want to see.
Yeah, it's not a likeness of me in a sort of pure way, but it captures my smirk.
It's his vision of you.
Beautifully.
Yeah.
I just loved it. I was actually completely thrown by it because, you have this expectation that a portrait's going to be better than reality. And instead it's like, yeah, that's me. That's me smirking at something.
And everyone's different, but I would love, if Mike makes millions of dollars off of his drawing of me, go for it. Like, I'm all for it. So.
Well, and I talked about that a little bit in the Hangout, but I mean,
cute.
I've had people kind of broach that subject with me before, like, when you draw people, do you try to make them look really good? And, I want people to look good in my drawings. I want the drawings to look good. But, but really, when I'm drawing people, I really just want to capture who they are. I just want to capture how they look, and if there's some element of their personality or their soul that's evident in the way they look or in the way that I capture them, I want that. I really want that. Because I would rather have somebody look at a picture and go, oh, that is so me, you know, or so that is so that person. That just is totally evocative of them. I'd rather have them do that than look at a picture and go, well, they made them look really good. They look really pretty or really handsome.
That's not them.
But it doesn't capture who they really are.
Oh, that's what I love about drawings, too, because I feel like you can capture who somebody is without, you know, dealing with all the nitty-gritty of, well, does the way that they look all the time make them look not that attractive? Like, I feel that way. I felt that way so much about modeling. It's like I felt like the only good pictures were the ones that, you know, the ones that didn't fit my personality as much. And like the geeky, you know, nerdy, you know, I don't know, bubbly person, like, looks ugly in photographs, you know? So
well, I don't know about that.
Well, thanks. But you know, just, you know, it doesn't sell anything.
Right, it's not you all made up and everything like that, but
right. Like, I just got out of the shower right now. So like, but you know, the modeling pictures, I felt like, you know, you're selling something. You're not trying to be yourself. That's not the purpose, right?
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. I mean, the whole, maybe not the whole, but a big part of modeling, especially in the commercial context, is that the entire intent is to get a specific look or specific feel so that it can be used probably to sell something.
Right.
You know?
Well, Mike, here's the question for you. Because you are working in this drawing modality, and you're working in a way that you abstract information from reality. Okay, you're not trying to make a precise rendering of anybody's reality in that sort of anatomical way. Mm-hmm. Are you slipping, do you think, more towards illustration in an editorial way, or are you slipping more away from representation?
Those are really big words. You know, I think that I do want my pictures to be representative. I mean, absolutely. I want them to.
Representative and representational are different things, though, right? And right. I think that, I see that you are working towards representative as opposed to representational. But what I'm curious about, I guess, let me ask it a different way. Is the idea or is the technique more important to you? Let's assume that aesthetics matter.
Because he does have a style, for sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
More important, the idea or the technique?
Mike needs to go, doesn't he?
I have not given that any thought. I would say the idea is more important than the technique, because what I'm doing could be achieved in any number of ways. Mm-hmm. You know, it could be something where I'm drawing people with pen and ink, or painting, or doing pastels, or, I mean, any number of different things could achieve the same result. So really, for me, what's important is the idea behind it. If I want to capture people, I want to, capture how somebody, not just how they look, but how they are. You know, I want to capture who they are in the moment, and whether that's particularly, aesthetically good looking, or as a piece, or if it's just a person being, weird looking, or whether it's with no makeup, or if it's however they are. I just want to capture that, and my preferred medium happens to be digital illustration, but I could totally see continuing to do this years into the future, and maybe my tastes have changed and I'm working in a different medium, or there's completely new mediums available based on new technology, I could totally see continuing to do it with the same underlying idea of, I just want to capture how people are. I want to capture who they are in a 2D image.
I wonder how poetic your images will become. Because I don't think they're going to become more real or more narrative or more, if you think of the difference between something that's literal and something that's poetic, I see that there's a potential for more poetic occurrences in the future.
They're already
and I wonder
so
how,
poetic.
yeah, and I wonder how, I don't know, I'm curious. This is the thing, okay? You said some very kind things about me in the Hangout on Air, which really surprised me. But I've always admired your work, which is another interesting thing, from the very beginning, from the first time I saw your work. And there's another fellow on here who works in a similar kind of way, Charles Dowd. And, it's this sort of illustrative aspect, but it's also kind of ephemeral, and there's something about the way that the two of you work that is not an expected illustrator's presentation in there.
I noticed, Elaine, that you seem to get surprised a lot on Google Plus by people that you meet as far as artists and things that happen, right? That's natural, like a normal thing. Like, so, what do you think that is? That just...
Well, I think it's more my own surprise at how far I'm willing to extend my art world expertise, if you want to call it that.
Here's a question, and I didn't mean to cut you off. You go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, you've been in the industry in one way or another for a while.
2 decades.
Yeah, and I wonder if, being immersed in the industry, there is a level of cultural expectations or ways that people do things that you get used to. Do you feel like that might be the case on some level?
Absolutely, and with Google Plus, I sometimes find myself questioning my own elitist knowledge. Do you know what I mean? It's like I don't in any way ever feel that I have ever relinquished what I know. Instead, I've been given opportunities to know things differently. So when I see things that I wouldn't expect to have liked in a different context and with a different demand pushing me, it's just so incredible. Right? Yeah, it's expectation, but it's an internally motivated. I don't know if I can really express it very lucidly, but
no, that sounds great. You expressed it very well.
But there is this kind of, when I see something, I have the freedom to like it on its own merit. And I think that's partially aging and maturity and having seen so much and basically reaching the point where it's like, oh, if I have to look at another fucking photograph, I'll just like, I'm done. So I have the freedom to see things. I'm also exploring different things myself in my own practice. So I have an admiration that's new. And I was having this discussion with a lot of the people that I know in the art world, actually, about the value of illustration and illustrative work and whether it deserves to be positioned someplace else, because I think it has an enormous validity. And I love seeing that. That's actually what keeps me percolating, is when I see a new illustrator rather than a new photographer, because as much as I know everybody's discovering photography, I'm past that. So it's nice for me to have something new to discover. And drawing has definitely been what I've noticed, and painting to a lesser extent, but the painters who are on here, who are especially the ones working digitally with paint, that's a whole new realm for me, and I find it remarkable. I absolutely do. I am filled with envy for the technical knowledge that people have. That I've had my head up the ass of photography, so it's like I have no idea how people are doing these things. So when I see what you do, I'm sure that there are tricks that other people would look at it and go, oh, he just did this and this, because I can do that with a photograph, right? But there's
they do that with all art, don't they?
Well, yes, if
it's like a magic trick.
Anybody who's a professional in their field knows how to dissect and to denotate or describe something,
Doesn't mean they can replicate it, though.
No, they can't. Not necessarily, unless they're a great copyist, and there are certainly many of those around. And you know, a lot of what we see with HDR on Google Plus is copyist work. People are saying, okay, well, I'm looking at this guy and he's doing these kinds of landscapes, and I actually want to share a little something, because this was a paradigm shifter for me. As much as I don't personally care for HDR, high dynamic range photography, because I know how to do it, and I've known how to do it since I was able to do it in analog photography and bracketing photographs and sandwiching negs and all the rest of that stuff. As much as I don't care for it, what I found out is that Trey Ratcliffe, I was talking in a Hangout about this earlier today, Trey Ratcliffe is actually blind in one eye, okay, completely blind in one eye, so he sees the world in a monocular vision, which flattens the world, and the fact that he's giving equal value to every shadow in a way that he can't see when he's actually seeing with his own eyes. So I thought that that was really remarkable. So again, there's stuff here that I don't necessarily have to care for. It doesn't mean it isn't teaching me something about, you know, the possibilities. And there are people who are copying the work without having that as their motivation.
Right.
And it's not successful work.
What I've really loved about Google Plus so far is that I've been able to find all these kind of different artists doing different types of things that I never saw, you know, in galleries or other places where I was exposed to the art. I was never really involved in any kind of online art community before this, and so, you know, I don't know if there's ever been one that's quite so dynamic, where people from so many different genres that are doing so many different things are interacting together and talking together, where you have illustrators doing one thing, talking to the HDR photographers who are talking to people that are doing digital painting, and you know, I think it's important to have an artistic community where you have a lot of people that are on the cutting edge in a lot of different areas that are working together and talking together.
Yeah, and I think also the value of, I know some people hate them, and that's fine, I don't really mind, because I don't, the whole GIF community. People because there are people on here like Oz Mello, Sally McKay, Bill Miller, numerous people who are actually, this is their practice, to work in a digital realm, to work within a platform like this, to use it to display the work that they're making that's internet-based. And I think that that's kind of escaped a lot of people's attention.
There's some beautiful GIFs out there too. Like, I know it's often been used for the cats and stuff, but there are some gorgeous ones. I saw one of I don't know who made it, but Michael Mozart posted one recently of or maybe not recently, but it was like a flyover over the Earth from the International Space Station. It was beautiful.
Yeah, I was gonna say every post, whether it's a GIF or whatever, I mean, they all evoke different emotions. And I think some people, they see the GIF, and maybe, I think some people just have slow computers, and then it slows their computer down. That bothers them, which is kind of unfair to the GIFs. But if you don't have a slow computer and you're like, all right, a GIF, it's like if you look at each one as they come up and you have a reaction or you don't, but usually you do have a reaction to everything that comes across your stream, and usually visual stands out, especially now that they're humongous size. And I think that, like, it's interesting, and every single one, maybe that's beautiful. Like you said, oh, that was so beautiful and glorious, and maybe, oh, that was stupid, or you appreciated, or you didn't, or maybe it was hilarious, or whatever. There are people that can sit there. Some of these GIFs can hypnotize you. You can sit there and you want to watch. You just watch it over and over. And I've seen that. I've actually asked, hey, how many times do you actually watch this? And they're like, wow, 30 times or 10 times. Because it's like, there's something about it, because we're not used to seeing it as much.
Yeah, well, there are also the different varieties of GIFs. Like the ones that I appreciate more are, there's some that are stop motion. Basically, it's the reduction of video back to stop motion, where you take a photograph and you kind of build up a video from a series of photographs, which is what film is. So those tend to not impress me as much as the ones that are made with technological resources like data. Where someone has taken something, extracted something from the machinery of digital realms itself, and then they present it to you. And they're usually the ones that are, there are ones that are sort of like crazy. Well, Oz Mello is my one that pops to mind immediately, and I'll put his name in the box for you. but he's somebody who, when you look at these kinds of GIFs, they're the ones that might make you feel a little uncomfortable because they're optical illusions for the 21st century. And Pascal Wallish had one posted on his wall last night that actually went viral. We were talking about that behind the scenes. That's his name. I may have misspelled his surname, but the kinds of abstractions of psychedelia. I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah, I think. I don't know. I mean, I guess it kind of comes down to that age-old question of, is everything valid on some level?
I think so. I think that there's a. I mean, they say it all the time, and that's what life, art, everything comes down to. One man's treasure is another man's garbage, and vice versa. And that really is its opinion, and that's really what it is. Why someone loves a picture, hates a picture, or drawing, or a post, or anything. Sometimes it's always valid to them. Whether it's valid to you is another thing. But it's like every character in a play. The play is not necessarily about them, but for them, it's about them. And it's about what they feel and what they are getting out of it. So that's really what all the life, everything is. So, I just don't like it. I like people. The only thing that bothers me is when people go flip-flop nonstop, and there's you really can't get a sense of who they are because they're just sheepish or whatever.
Explain that more. Explain that more. What do you mean?
No, I just don't like it when someone's one day someone says, "Oh yeah, you know what? I love all this stuff, whatever. Let's say gifts," and then maybe a gift happens they don't like, and it just says, "Oh, I hate gifts." Someone just, and these people exist out here. It's
I haven't run up against that. So.
Oh well, you might have. You just don't necessarily know it yet.
Okay.
You might have because
I know what you mean though. Because there are people that I have come across on here who are not always consistent in either whether it's the way that they present themselves or the way that they communicate with people or the things that they say or do. I've come across those people that they're not always consistent, and and it leaves me questioning who is this person really?
Yeah. Really? Well, I don't know. I haven't. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say I haven't, as far as I know.
But Elaine, you said you've been surprised by a lot of things so far.
Yeah, but that's consistent surprise. I mean, I'm consistently inconsistent, so I don't know. Maybe it doesn't bother me the way it bothers other people.
Well, it only bothers me when it's someone that you think you have a relationship with, and then you really don't because.
You're going to have to be more specific, Matthew, because give me you don't have to name the person, but you have to name the action. Because I'm having a hard time with that.
I mean, there are people that have turned me on to something, right? They turn me on to say, this is great, you really need to use so-and-so.
Like what?
Okay, say Path, for instance. Someone turned me on to Path. They wanted me to use Path. I was like, and I used it. I'm like, oh, this is cool. And then someone didn't follow them back. On the owners of Path didn't follow them back, and this person went nuts.
What?
That was a great example. But I can't. But it's let's say you're talking to somebody about a shared love of something, and they're always talking about how they love this or they're against that. And then one day, it's oh well, yeah, that's a guess. Did I say that? Oh, but you've been saying that all along, and all of a sudden you act that kind of thing.
See, I love people like that. I'll say, I love your ADHD. That's
All right.
So, no, it doesn't bother me.
I like to think that, and maybe this is what Mike was getting at, but I like to think that anything like that, any kind of inconsistency like that is usually because you don't fully understand the person, or they're not fully able to communicate their deeper thoughts better. But I found, I don't know, maybe I'm naive, but I don't think that there's any such thing as a person who, just does things like that out of spite. I think it's all, maybe they have a complex opinion on something that differs on different aspects of it. No, I mean,
let's face it. Anybody can be hiding behind a laptop.
I don't think there is ever such a thing as inconsistency on the part of the person who is doing the act, whatever. Because whoever you are, I think, always consistent to who you are. The problem is that other people who see you or talk to you experience, they only experience some of the things you do or say.
And that's what we were talking about earlier in the show.
Yeah.
Just like, you get different levels of people, and us all sitting here in a hangout is all great, but if we were all in more of a situation where we were out to dinner, or we were at the movies, or whatever, we were at a conference, or vacationing, or...
I do think, however, that being said, I do think that with enough time of, viewing the things that people say or do, even if those things on the surface are incongruent, you can develop a sense of who that person is and their motivation, and based on that motivation, your opinion of them may change. Not necessarily even a bad way, but just in a different way. Like, okay, well, this is somebody that, I initially thought this about them, and now I realize that while that's not wholly untrue, it has to be colored by the fact that there's also these qualities to them.
Yeah, I agree. And actually on that point, I hate to keep jumping back to the Riverdale point, but since you brought it up at the beginning, I think part of the reason that a lot of people got really, really, really angry at me for my position on it, and I think part of it was that they didn't understand, they didn't fully understand my position. And like I got a lot of people saying that I was inconsistent, for example, because then I had my modeling pictures up still, and a lot of people were like furious, calling me a hypocrite, saying that I would complain about this while having my modeling pictures up. And my main point was that, you want to create a community where people can share whatever it is they want and only get kinds of comments that are up to the limit of their consent, and so I think that people didn't understand it. People thought that I was just totally against, I guess, that I was Puritan. And
which isn't the case.
No, I don't think it's the case. I do have, I was raised with a German mother, and in a Catholic household, and I can be a little stricter than other people, but I don't mandate that upon others, I don't think. And so I don't know, but I think that made me see in a way that a lot of people, if I see them misunderstanding me, it's probably the case that if I think that somebody is being cruel or inconsistent or a hypocrite, it's probably because I don't understand their position either.
But we aren't consistent as human beings.
No.
We are not. So I think that's also part of the joy of watching this community in particular, where people, I just get the feeling like people front less on Google+. I know that there are people. So, I know that there are people who are fronting all the time. Okay, it's not about that, but I think that people, for the most part, are genuinely sharing what matters to them, and that they're looking for what matters to them. So, I forget where I was going to go with that, but whatever. Someone else can pick it up.
You look like Matt, you look like you had a thought that was going through your head during that deep thought. What was going with
no, I was thinking about, no, it's just that, no, I'm just a little tired, but we've all been on here quite a while. We've all experienced so many different people, so many situations, so many posts, so much time spent with so many different people, and, it's like, at this point, I don't know, I think all of you can agree, maybe not, but you look at a person, whether it's on G-Talk, their name, or a post, or in a hangout, someone pops in, someone pops out, just like you have a reaction to a post, you have a reaction to a person. So it's the same thing. It's like, oh yeah, hey, it's so-and-so, or oh, it's so-and-so, And you get that, and that is very interesting to me, and that can change based on things that happen and things that you learn about each other, and hopefully, obviously people can't like everybody, and you can't be liked by everybody, and that's fine, but it's like, if you spend so many hours with someone, and it's like a relationship. People say you can't really ever know someone, and and you could be in a relationship with someone for years. You can about to ask them to marry you, and then they break up with you. you know, I mean, those kind of things seem to happen. And
You
then,
know, oh, go ahead.
yeah, go ahead, Krista. What were you going to say?
Oh, I was going to say that the one thing that I've found so far is that there's never been a person that I felt like I got to know them 100% and still disliked them. You know, there was this one person, for example, and tell me if I'm going too much into too long of a story here, but in high school I was in this poetry club, and there was a guy there that no one would talk to because he was just, you know, he came off as really weird. You know, he was talking about death all the time, and you know, couldn't have very good social skills and stuff like that. And you know, we invited him to the poetry club, and he had some beautiful, beautiful poetry. Like, you would have never guessed it. And you know, once we got to know him over the course of those couple years, we realized that he really was a very sensitive guy, but he was suffering from mental illness, and you know, it was kind of tragic, but but like, people really, I don't know, put him off because of that.
Well, and you know, I was just thinking about you know, what Elaine was saying about, you know, as people we're all inconsistent, and well, I think that, I mean, I think that I definitely see how, you know, you can look at a person or people as a whole, and you know, and that seems evident, but I don't think we're inconsistent. I think that so here's an analogy. If you take, because I love visual stuff, so if you take the visible spectrum to us, you know, red, you know, all the way down to purple, and you know, and all of the colors in between. If you take, you know, if you took a viewfinder and you looked at a spectrum and you put it here, you're going to see a color, and if you put it here, you're going to see a different color. And you know, and if you put it down here, you're going to see a different color. And if you were just taking those single images as individual representations of what the thing is, you're going to say, well, this thing is inconsistent. But the reality is, if you had the ability to see all of it simultaneously, you'd see it for what it is, which is, it's a spectrum. You know, it's something that is not always the same, but it's always whole.
Okay.
This is why we get along so much, Mike. You always.
But Mike, where that begins to shift is in, yes, I am consistent to myself within my life.
Sure.
Right? But what happens is that somebody else comes along and they have a filter, and they look at that through a filter, and that filter may not be consistent with who you are, or what they're looking for, or what their expectations are of you.
Represent themselves.
Yeah. So, I mean, in some days it could be a neutral density filter, and other days it could be a polarizing filter, and some other days it's going to be a yellow filter.
Some days they're drunk, some days they're sometimes they're hungover, some days they're sick. Yeah, I mean, there's different things like that.
So, yeah, we're not consistent to others.
But I think it's one thing to be unpredictable. It's another thing to do something way outside the realm of it's maybe more negative than positive, or maybe positive, but I would think like doing something way outside the realm of what we thought someone could do in a negative way versus, I mean, positive.
Welcome to the world of being an artist. I relish it.
Right.
Bring it. No, but in terms of a social interaction,
behavior, yeah,
whole other thing, right?
So,
but yeah, I do think absolutely the way that we perceive people is absolutely based on the limited amount of interaction that we have with them, coupled with our own filters, like you said, our own worldview, our own previous experiences and preconceived notions about the way things are or the way that people act, and I do think that because of that, you say you can't know someone 100%. I think that's probably true. I think you can know someone extremely well, but it's something that takes a lifetime. You know?
Well, you know, my husband and I have been together 40 years.
Yeah.
I still don't know him, and that's a treasure.
Yeah. He still surprises you sometimes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, and that's what you hope for, is that kind of, I do anyway.
Yeah.
Some people don't want that. Some people want to have, like, everything is in order, every teaspoon lays precisely on top of the next teaspoon, which is beside the small.
They try to call it the
beside
midlife crisis
fork.
when those things happen, right? They try to put it on something.
Yeah.
But, you know, I think it's cool to hear you say that, though, because I think that speaks to something that is, I think, a really incredible quality about humans, is that we desire the new. We desire novelty and newness and new experiences. And the reality is, if you got to a point where you really did know someone 100%, as much as you might like that 100%,
To get boring.
yeah, I mean, the novelty to some degree, maybe not completely, but to some degree, the novelty of knowing that person might start to lessen. And so it's kind of a good thing. If you cannot know someone 100%, that means that there's always more to learn about them, and there's more to discover and more adventures to be had. And that, to me, I think that's more exciting than the concept of knowing somebody 100%.
And I also think that boredom is an individual issue. It's not the other person's issue. If you're bored, it's not because of what's out there or because of who's out there. It's your own sort of current reality, and you are the one who needs to switch it up.
I like to think
however you
that,
can.
I like to think that the people that I'm really close with, I feel like I know them better than I know myself, and they know me better than they know themselves. I don't know. I think that's when you get a really great relationship with people, and I feel like I have that with like my husband and my sister and a couple of my best friends. And when you get to that level of a relationship and closeness with somebody, you realize that the newness doesn't necessarily come from learning something new about them, but about growing with another person. And I think recognizing that people change with new experiences throughout their lifetime, it doesn't mean that you're discovering something that was already within them that's new. It's that they're growing as a person as a result of new experiences, and that you can share those new experiences with them by sharing your life with them.
But not only sharing our lives with them, but sharing our openness. I think the most important thing is that we remain open. And it's interesting, the four of us sitting here in the room, we're all early adopters. I mentioned this earlier. Like, the character of an early adopter is someone who is open. Now, how quickly you shut is a whole other story, right? And I think there are people who just shut down really quickly.
Do you think so? Do you think there are people that shut down when it went public out of beta?
I think so. I know that it's having a trickle-down effect on me for sure. I don't spend a whole lot of time thinking about it. I'm just aware of the sort of perception that something has shifted, especially in the past 2 weeks. And that's not because of the whole white space, graphic redesign. That's not because of that. There was an attitude shift and a sort of, the notifications are broken, so why am I on here if I don't know who's talking to me?
Right, but the notifications, that was a problem before that.
I've had problems since March, but it's become more apparent to me because my stream is slower. I'm not seeing the people that I used to see. I made a post last week where I specifically wanted to see, and people I hang out with, very few people saw that post. It was mostly people who were in a whole other kind of realm. This is the way I use Google+. I don't have circles that I go and check every day. I let the stream come to me.
Yeah. I think a lot of people use it that
And
way.
I pick what I like out of the stream. I see what I want to comment on. It's like that's being delivered to me, and in exchange I'm delivering myself back to that instead of me going, looking and plucking. It's a very different kind of action.
Do you turn the circles volumes up for your mainstream?
You know what, I did, but it had no really serious effect. And what I also realized as a result of that is there were some circles that needed to just be gone wholesale. Because if I didn't want to know what was going on from that circle, why was I keeping it? Chances were people were in more than one circle to begin with, so I actually got rid of a few circles that had no relevance.
And it was interesting. The more circles you put someone in, the higher relevance they get, too.
Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff. I did that post on relevance last week, and there are all kinds of things that enter into relevance, including your previous relationship via Gmail, your private messages, there's more that enters into it than that. So, but I've noticed a shift, and it may just be mine. It may have nothing to do with Google.
No, I don't think it's just yours, though, because I've noticed that there have been, for lack of a better term, I've seen stages within Google+.
Absolutely.
And I've noticed transitions between different stages.
Yes.
Where there's a period of time where it seems like the dominant feeling is this, or the dominant action is this.
Yes.
And as of right now, the stage that I see is I see less posts and less interaction. Now, I'm sure part of that is because I'm at work all day. I'm not looking.
But also an adjustment period for the new.
And some of it, I'm sure some of it is an adjustment period, and it's not to say that the people aren't still here, because for all I know, they're sharing just as much stuff. They're just doing it more specifically to circles and not publicly, or not to circles that I'm in. But I have noticed that, and there are specific people that I used to see lots of stuff from that I now don't see very much.
And do you go to their profile to see if you just missed it, or you don't?
Yeah, and then I go, holy shit, these people sent me a notification.
Right. Well,
and I didn't get it,
Yeah, and even when you search, you can't, it doesn't.
Yeah, I've missed out on a lot of people.
Maybe that's part of the social experiment. What?
That's why I want the incoming stream back. I want to be able to go see.
Yeah, I want the incoming stream.
They're like, if we take little notifications away from them, let's see how pissed they get and see what happens then.
Well, we are all living in the bottom of someone's chest of drawers. You know that, right? And someone's just comes around and vacuums every now and then, and they move the dust around, and that's when we all shift, right? You know that's.
Yeah, I talked about that, like the fact that your room could be like completely messy, and then someone cleans it up and thinks they're organizing it, and then you can't find anything.
Yeah.
So.
But it's true what you say, Mike, and I'm glad to hear you say that, because I've noticed it from the beginning, that there are, there were always universal movements in art. These things would happen in this part of the world and that part of the world. How did they ever know? Now we're living in this global culture, this sort of international culture, and I sense that there are things that happen. You'll see a post from somebody that's completely unrelated to that person, and they're both talking about the same thing on the same day. There are definitely memes that occur in behavior, which has been really interesting to me to observe. Yeah. It's not about influence. It's not. That's the last thing that it's about. It's more of a zeitgeist. There's more of this sort of generic rumbling that happens, and suddenly you notice that this person's writing about that, and that person's writing about that.
Well, you can tell.
It's fascinating to me. Yeah, but they don't know each other. They don't know each other. It's different.
But they know each other. They could know. No, you don't know how they're connected.
There was a day 2 weeks ago where everybody wrote an emotional post. Not everybody, but I'm saying like 10 people wrote very personal, very emotional posts without having read the others, and they were just one right after the other, and somebody noticed, and they compiled them together, and it was a really interesting day. And myself, as one of those people, I'm not prone to writing that kind of stuff, and somehow that day I woke up and I just had this thing to say, and I said it. It had nothing to do with anything. It was completely out of character for me.
I don't think there's any need to attribute something that could very well be random to something that has a purpose, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, and I thought you meant something like when people were all trying to make something trending, which is.
Oh God, please shoot me now. Take away that trending stuff. Just take away the hashtag, please. I know, Matthew, you would die without your hashtag.
I wouldn't die. I was using the hashtags before they had them. Listen.
I was born with a hashtag. I was born with a hashtag.
I know.
Look at my last name. It's a hashtag.
Right.
It's kind of true, though, that Matthew was the first one that I saw using hashtags.
I was doing, when I got on here, I was doing what I wanted, and I used it as a creative space, and I got a lot of slack for it, and I got a lot of opposites, so whatever. It is
Oh,
what it is.
and your pages for plussing things were fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
It was fun. It was a fun, and it still is, and I tried. But
I think I like hashtags. I think it's a great way to be able to identify something as fitting into a certain category
or be funny.
Or be funny.
You funny?
And it's useful, when I want to go find out more about something that people are talking about, and so I like that. I do find it a little bit annoying when I see stuff on the trending topics that I'm like, why is that trending? That's the stupidest thing ever.
Trending is trending.
Yeah, like that. But I realize that this is, in a lot of ways, this is kind of a democracy, and it's like, if a bunch of people get together and decide we're going to make this a trending topic, I can't say, well, you can't do that, because if I'm going to tell them you can't make this a trending topic, then who's to say somebody else can't tell me I can't make something?
Everyone can do what they want, and you have the right to like it or not like it, and that's what.
Well, we're given so many opportunities. We can mute, block, ignore, right? So, or simply let it scroll
uncircle,
past. Yeah, we have so many options that are available to us. I don't like it when people game the system, but I would game the system if I felt like it. So I'm not going to stop people from gaming the system.
It's interesting you bring that up, because I've seen a couple of people talk a little bit about primarily numbers of followers.
Oh, God.
Yeah, and how they arrived at that number. And I know that there are people that have intentionally gamed the system to gain more followers. And I have made a specific decision not to do that. I only want people to follow me because they've organically determined that they like what I have to say. But
there is no. I don't think there's one person on Google Plus that has a complete set of organic followers. I don't think.
Right. No, of course not. But I do think, at the same time, the people that have chosen to game it for whatever their motivation, which is usually their motivation is to gain a greater level of followers, thereby a greater level of influence, which they can then use for either marketing something or getting certain ideas out.
Sad.
And I think it's sad, but at the same time, I can't say that I don't entirely understand, because if your goal is, if you're looking at it from like a marketing perspective, I've got this thing I'm going to do, and I want to get this many people to see it and respond in a specific way, it's an effective way to achieve that goal.
Well, it's another bit of human experiment. Like, wow, who's responding and how, and if they are. To me,
I'm
it's
not
all
saying I
interesting.
agree with it, because I don't, but I understand it.
Right. I'm all for being creative, but everybody's idea of what that is different too. So.
I look at it as it's the same idea as advertising. It's the same thing. All these, billboards and ads in magazines and ads on TVs, at the end of the day, what they're trying to do is influence you to do something, to buy something or to take a certain action, and by identifying a certain demographic and by tailoring content to certain tastes or certain subjects and presenting it in a certain way or a certain format, they're able to more easily achieve their end goal of getting you to purchase that bag of chips or, to watch that TV show. And I don't like commercials, but I understand that that's how it works. That's how products get sold.
I think advertising is beautiful.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I like the science behind it. I like that.
Yeah, it's awesome.
So why are you guys not watching Mad Men and coming on our show on Monday?
I love Mad Men. I watch it every week.
Well, see, we have did you know that Armin and myself do a Mad Mondays show?
Ah.
About Mad
I
Men?
knew that.
Well, usually I don't.
Yeah.
I haven't watched it by the time Monday comes around because like it
Oh,
comes on late,
Let's
late
stay
on
away from
Sunday.
Spoilers.
Yeah.
Spoilers galore.
I got
It's like an
the
hour
snap,
long.
sorry
Hard to
about
find an
that.
hour in the middle of something.
And I'm like lost because I've never watched it, and I'm like, oh, okay, well,
How did you get to Mad Men? Oh, what's just the Mad Men? Yeah, sorry about the awesome app came up. I was like, what? Like sitting there watching, went, ooh, it just turned blue. It's like,
Yeah, no, I love that show.
yeah, and that's what's great. Those broadcasts, I tried to do one about TV, but that went off the deep end. But maybe I'll do something about TV. But yeah, it's great to have those things where we're talking about different subjects, and Mad Men's great, and
Well, I have Hangout on air capabilities. I haven't done one yet, but
you're not alone, by the way, in that. And
yeah,
that's
I know.
Another topic that people bring up a lot.
Like, why would I start when I don't know exactly what I want to do? I thought I knew what I wanted to do, but if I can't start and maintain, I'm not going to start.
Right.
I'm going to wait until it's all the way it should be. So
the way it's funny. The way I did it is like I always had the show from September. I was just doing the show, but once I got on air, I was more than willing, and I still am, to just not do my shows and then do on air whenever I feel like it. And so if it's not a show, if it's a hangout, whatever it is, because why not? I mean, because there are a lot of people out there that don't have the. I was in a hangout Billy Wilson show, and a lot of people were talking about how a lot of people are uncomfortable and scared and nervous to hang out, and there's a lot of us that are like, what? Like, it's like, all right, but there are a lot of people out there that are. What were you saying?
I wish they could simply take a look at this panel sitting right here and understand this is it. I'm sitting in my dining room in my house, and I'm comfortable and I'm relaxed, and I'm wearing like a velour hoodie, and this is the way I'm looking today, and Mike's hanging out with his screen, hiding whatever's behind him and being who he always is, and Matthew's put up this big black curtain now to make himself stand out from the backdrop, but you're hanging out in your NYPD blue shirt, and Christa is sitting there, and her just came out of the shower, hanging out very casually. But this is it. We come together in this very democratic space. Nobody's putting on airs. Nobody's trying to be anything that they aren't. This is people simply hanging out talking.
I think it's really hard for a lot of women, though. Especially.
With the dick hangers outers.
Well, no, I think I mean being comfortable coming in front of the camera, especially without doing hair and makeup or something like that. It's hard, and especially for people whose reputations depend on their attractiveness, like the actresses and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, that's a whole other celebrity level. We're not celebrities. We're people. Right?
Well, that comes back to the screenshots, too. It's like you post a screenshot and people are like, oh, my God, it looks terrible. Take that down. That's awful. How could you do that? It's like, and you talk about the ethics and morals, and every time you want a picture, you want anything, you get permission, this and that. But, I think, like, if every time somebody took a picture and took a screenshot here, I know Muhammad has to capture the moment. If every time somebody did that, not recording with pictures, for instance, and they had to go through and post the picture to somebody and get the permission and then post it. By then they're like, I don't even want to post it. Like,
I think it works. I think there are organic ways to do it. Like, you can take the screenshot and then say, hey guys, do you mind if I post this right now? Mm-hmm. Everyone's still in the hangout right there right after you took the picture.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I did take a few screenshots to put up for just letting you know.
Yeah.
Where I've done it where I'll take a screenshot and I'll just share it only with the people that are in the hangout.
Right.
Because it's like an inside joke or something.
Right, if it was that, yeah.
And that way, if somebody really, if they were bothered by it, if they were like, please don't post that publicly.
I wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
So do you think because you agree to be recorded for HOA, that's also agreeing to screenshots or no?
Sure.
Yeah.
Whatever happens in here, even if you catch me in an inappropriate moment where I'm like going,
Right, and that's my own discussion. Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah, I think when you're on the Hangouts on air, that's different. It makes it's already being recorded.
When Mike did his drawing of me, he sent it to me first to okay the tag, which I did.
Right.
I mean, I guess that's it's just a level of ethics though too. I mean, like let's say if you were to make a GIF of like 3 seconds of somebody doing something that they didn't realize they were doing or something
Right.
Misrepresenting what they were doing. I think it wouldn't be right to post it unless you got their permission. But I don't know. I think there's a line and there's a gradient.
It's interesting though, to me, I mean, everyone has, the professional, all that, but, and it's maybe it's not fair to talk about sense of humor, and everyone's different with what they find funny or what they don't, but, I don't know. It's, to me, I mean, maybe because I'm an actor and all that, but being vulnerable and, whatever it is, okay, it's out there, great. I mean, short of being completely naked, but even that, all right, there I am. The only thing that would bother me would be like, if there were naked pictures of you, and then like when you go to, they type your name and they can find naked pictures of you, that might mess up your chances.
Listen, there are somewhere out there are naked drawings and paintings and stuff of me because I used to work as an artist model way back, way back. I would love for those to show up because I was hot.
Oh, you're still, oh, come on.
That would be like,
Dad.
I was just like, cha-cha. I was just fabulous. You don't know when you're that young how fabulous you actually were. But I sure as hell know, looking back, and I would love to see that stuff.
Your husband reminds you, right?
What?
No.
No. I mean, I'm talking about retroactive.
Right.
Sort of being able to look back at myself and realize how magnificent it was to be that age and to, I would just love.
That's why actresses have films, so they can look back. Elizabeth Taylor,
That's right.
I'm sure, put on her movies when she was up there.
Yeah, and sometimes I can really depress the fuck out of you too. So.
Yeah, that's true. Liza Minnelli, maybe, but.
Yeah, but the fact that I used to take my clothes off in public for people, I mean, that's kind of interesting to me because it's interesting. But I did that. I certainly wouldn't do it now.
Right.
Well, I was going to say, guys, I need to take
We're in overtime.
Yeah, I should too.
Yeah, this has been great.
Yeah, this has been a really, really good hangout.
Yeah, and good meeting you, PE. What's your first, or is there a name that I should call you by?
No, it's PE or Elaine. It's kind of a...
I like calling her
most people have picked it, yeah.
Elaine? Okay.
Yeah. Pelaine.
Oh, Elaine. Okay.
Oh, it's not I thought it was Elaine.
Plain?
It is Elaine.
Oh, okay.
I'm messing with you.
Oh, you're messing with okay. Yeah.
Who is it that calls me Pelaine? Liza Sperling calls me Pelaine.
Hey, Pelaine!
Yeah.
That's my Liza Sperling invitation.
Pelaine would be fun.
Yeah.
Pelaine is fun. She's fun all the time. She takes her clothes off.
Every night, guaranteed.
Every night, guaranteed. Well, I really hope, Mike, that those pictures get uncensored. And if you're watching Google, Vic, whoever, if you are, uncensor the pictures.
Flip the switch.
Flip it.
Speak to Brian. You know what? Tag Brian in.
Yeah.
Tag Brian into the conversation.
I've talked to him, and nothing came of it at the time. It may have just been that it was not a good time, and I need to bring it up again.
Yeah.
Probably. He's busy. I think he's in England or something.
Mm-hmm.
I should probably bring it up again, just to be like, hey,
Yeah, I would.
And Mike, before you go, plug what you got, MikeSearleArt.com?
Yeah, MikeSearleArt.com. Check it out.
Nice.
Links to stuff. Pretty pictures.
Plustastic, is that still,
Yeah,
I'm the only one that tags it? What?
we still do stuff on there. Admittedly, we're all busy people, and some of us, what we're doing has had to change a little bit, and so maybe we're not doing it as actively as we had been. But yeah, absolutely, it's still there, and people can go and order stuff if they'd like, and all my fellow Plustastic members are awesome artists, and I'd love to see them get as much work as they can possibly handle. So.
Cool. Thanks, Mike.
Sounds good. Good to
Thanks,
see you again.
Krista. Thanks, Elaine.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
Thanks for
everyone.
watching. Have a good night. We'll be back next week with Jane Ellen, then guitarist Mike Gibson, and go check hangoutconversations.com. And Monday's the Plustainment Show. Good night. Stay tight. Have a good weekend, everybody.
Bye.
Ciao.